The LA Kings 2025-26 full schedule is out. I like how things break down. I'll tell you why. Plus, maybe big news about Anze Kopitar. That and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, also one of the co-hosts of Locked On NHL Game Night. We're having the show during the offseason. We're giving a report on all 32 teams in the NHL, getting you caught up on what's happened to these teams in the offseason, getting you ready for next season. And I'm also a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Coming up on today's show, maybe big news on the future of Anze Kopitar. We'll share what that's all about coming up. But the NHL released the schedule of all 32 teams in the National Hockey League on Wednesday. The last season, we're going to have 82 games on the schedule. It will increase to 84 games by next season. So 41 games at home, 41 games on the road for the Kings for probably the final time. I do not anticipate the NHL ever going backwards and decreasing games. So it'll only go more, I would think. So anyway, 82 games this year. We'll have 84 next year. But the Kings, once again, are starting off a season with a lot of road games. However, unlike last season when the Kings opened up with a 7-game road trip due to renovations to Crypto.com Arena, this time kind of just how the schedule plays out, which isn't necessarily a bad thing for two reasons. Number one, the Kings have a decent group of new players this year. Corey Perry, Joel Armia, Brian Dumoulin, Cody Ceci, Anton Forsberg, even Andrei Kuzmenko obviously only joined the Kings late at the deadline. So a full season for all those guys being members of the LA Kings and an early road trip, always a good chance for a team to bond and get to know each other a little bit. It's all about hockey. You're kind of away from the families. You're hanging out together. You're having dinners together, all that kind of stuff. Plus, having a lot of road games earlier in the year, the players are fresh. They've just come off the offseason. They're hopefully injury-free. Of course, something could happen in the preseason like we saw with Drew Doughty, but for the most part, they're fresh, they're injury-free, they've got more energy, and for the Kings, I think that's important because of with the travel that's involved. If you play on the West Coast, it's a little more grueling, a little more tedious than some of the East Coast teams, so I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, as long as the Kings are decent to start the season on the road. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for the Kings, so not that upset about it. If it's going to work out one way or another, I'd rather have a bunch of home games later in the year than at the beginning of the season. But we'll see how it ends up for the LA Kings. So let us start with the first month of the NHL regular season, which is in October. And the Kings will open up the season on home ice October 7th as they host the Colorado Avalanche in a triple header that night of opening night action. The Kings and the Avalanche will be the third game, the final game of the night. Second time in the last 3 seasons, the Kings will have opened up the season against Colorado. Hopefully this time will be better than 2 years ago when the Kings lost to the Avs 5-2 in the season opener. But that will be only one of 4 home games in the entire opening month of the season for the Kings. Colorado, Pittsburgh, Carolina, Detroit. That's your home schedule. Your home opponents for the first month of the season. The other 8 games in October, all on the road, including a 5-game road trip that starts on October 21st in St. Louis and ends on October 28th in San Jose. That game against the Sharks will be the final game of the night in which all 32 NHL teams will be in action. Of the 8 road games in October, 6 of them will be against playoff teams from last season, so could be a very difficult schedule. Kings will play back-to-back games twice in the month of October. Kings will play opening night at home against Colorado, and then the very next night they're in Vegas to take on the Pacific Division rival Golden Knights. And then during the road trip, the Kings will face Nashville on October 25th, and then the next night play in Chicago against the Blackhawks on the 26th. That's the first month of the season, October. for the LA Kings. As for November, Kings will play 13 total games, 6 home, 7 on the road, including the first of 2 6-game road trips during the season. This one will start on November 9th in Pittsburgh and end on November 20th in San Jose. Of those 13 games, 7 of them are against playoff teams from a year ago, including the Kings' first matchup against the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. That will be November 6th, and that will be in Los Angeles. Kings will play back-to-back games twice in November. On the 20th, they're in San Jose, and then the next night at home against the Boston Bruins. November will also see the Kings play both of their 2 games this season against the Ottawa Senators, and that will be the first time the Kings will be facing former teammate Jordan Spence. First meetings in Ottawa on November 15th, and then the Kings will welcome Spence back to LA on November the 24th. The Kings on November 28th will play their first game of the season against the Ducks, and that will be Corey Perry's return to Anaheim. We'll be very curious to see how he's received wearing a Kings jersey at the Pond. I would think not well, but who knows? He is a Ducks all-time great. I would assume at some point he'll have his jersey retired by the organization, but that doesn't mean he won't get booed being in a Kings uniform on that first game back in Anaheim. And then the next night, the Kings will be in action in Vancouver. That'll be on November the 29th. So that's the month of November for the Kings. As for December, Kings will play 13 games in the final month of the year 2025, 7 at home, 6 on the road. The month will start with perhaps the final LA appearance for superstar Alexander Ovechkin as the Washington Capitals come to town. Ovechkin, like Kings captain Anze Kopitar, playing in the final year of his contract, and although Ovechkin is still playing at a pretty high level, broke the all-time goal-scoring record last year, there is some speculation that this will be the Great Eight's final NHL season. So if you want to maybe see Alexander Ovechkin for the final time in Los Angeles, want to get out to that game. Also, early on in December, got a weird situation where the Kings are playing back-to-back home games against the same team. On December 4th and 6th, the Kings will host the Chicago Blackhawks. December 27th, the Kings will be hosting the Anaheim Ducks for the first time this season. Kings will play back-to-back twice in December, the 17th and 18th. They're in Florida and then in Tampa Bay. And then just 3 days later, on the 22nd and 23rd, they'll be at home against Columbus and then Seattle. Of the 13 games in December, only 5 of them are against playoff teams from a year ago. So in the first month of the 2026 season, the Kings will play 16 games. We're talking about January now. The first month of 2026, Kings will play 16 games, 8 at home, 8 on the road. January 10th is the first of 3 meetings this season against the Edmonton Oilers. That game will be the second of back-to-back games, as the Kings will play against the defending President's Trophy winning Winnipeg Jets the night before. So big couple of games back-to-back in January, Winnipeg, and then the first meeting against Edmonton. Kings will also play back-to-back against the Ducks, with the Kings hosting Anaheim on January 16th and then facing the Ducks in Orange County on the 17th. January 20th, the Kings will host the New York Rangers and former Kings defenseman Vladislav Gavrikov for the first time. I'd be curious to see what kind of reception Gabby will get in LA. My guess it'll be a little bit mixed. He was popular for a short amount of time with the Kings, but I also think there's a decent group of Kings fans that feel like he snubbed LA to go to New York, and will be not quite happy about that. So we'll see how he's welcomed back. There will also be the team's second of the 6-game road trips in the season in the month of January. That 6-game road trip will start on January 25th in St. Louis and then end February 1st in Carolina. Up next, we'll look at the stretch run for the Kings and tell you how LA's strength of schedule ranked against other NHL teams. That's next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. You ever decided at the last minute you want to head to the ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It is the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on more food, drinks, merch, or even bring more friends to the game with you. Gametime makes it possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. They've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Gametime is the official ticketing partner of Locked On Major League Baseball, making it easy to browse the app for an exciting upcoming game for the Dodgers or Angels. Gametime has last-minute tickets and zone deals for big savings like 10%. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, checking the final 3 months of the NHL regular season for the LA Kings. In February, Kings are only going to play 6 total games. That is because from March the 5th through March the 25th, the NHL will be on the Olympic break. First time the NHL is participating in the Winter Olympics since 2014. As it stands right now, we know that Adrian Kempe for Team Sweden and Kevin Fiala for Team Switzerland will be likely the only Kings players to compete in Italy in the Winter Games, but you never know what could happen. Of course, maybe if something happens, injuries, things like that, never know. But we're pretty sure those two guys will at least be two Kings in the Olympics. So looking forward to that. Before the break, though, the Kings will play back-to-back games, one on the 4th at home against Seattle, and then the next night, the 5th, in Vegas against the Golden Knights. After the break, LA will resume play with 2 big rivalry games back-to-back. On the 25th of February, the Kings open up a 6-game homestand against the Golden Knights, and then the next night, on the 26th, they are hosting the Oilers in LA for the first time this season, and I think the only time this season that the Oilers are playing in LA during the regular season. Kings will play 13 games in the month of March, 6 at home, 7 on the road. But the Kings will also have a 6-game homestand spill into March. Starts on February the 25th against the Golden Knights and ends on March 7th against Montreal. 10 of the 13 games will be against teams that did not qualify for the playoffs last season. So the month of March, a little bit easier perhaps, judging by what happened last season. Twice in March, the Kings will play back-to-back nights. On March 13th, LA will play on Long Island against the Islanders. Next night on the 14th, they're in New Jersey to take on the Devils. And then on March the 21st, Kings will host the Sabres, and the next night they will play in Utah against the Mammoth. As for the final month of the NHL regular season, in April, the Kings will have 9 games. 6 of them will be on home ice, as the Kings will have a 7-game homestand, the longest homestand of the season, and that will go from the final day of March, March 28th, to April 11th against the Oilers. Kings will play on back-to-back nights twice in April. On the 1st, the Kings will host St. Louis, and then on the 2nd, they're at home against the Predators. Then on the 13th, the Kings are in Seattle, and the next night, on the 14th, they are in Vancouver. April 16th, the Kings play in Calgary to close out the 2025-26 NHL regular season schedule. Second straight year that the Kings will end the season against the Calgary Flames. Of course, wasn't supposed to happen this past year. The postponed game because of the wildfires. That game was in LA. This time it'll be Calgary on the road, north of the border, to close out the regular season. So the Kings will play on back-to-back nights 15 times. So backup goalie Anton Forsberg should be getting plenty of action for at least those 15 games. Kings will play 14 times on Monday, 6 at home, 8 on the road. 12 times on a Tuesday, 5 at home, 7 on the road. On Wednesday, the Kings have 8 games, 5 at home, 3 on the road. Thursday, the Kings play 18 games, 10 at home, 8 on the road. Kings will have just 5 Friday games, 2 at home, 3 on the road. The Kings play 21 games on Saturday, the most of any day of the week. And then they'll have 4 on Sunday. So of those weekend games, 13 home games for the Kings and no home games on Sunday. So if you are making plans for the upcoming NHL season and they don't include Kings hockey, your best bets are Friday and Sunday to try and schedule something else other than Kings hockey. For what it's worth, tankathon.com claims that the LA Kings have the fourth easiest schedule in the NHL, at least going into the season. Now, I have to assume that this is based on last season's win-loss totals. Not 100% sure. But for what it's worth, only the Carolina Hurricanes, Vegas Golden Knights, and Edmonton Oilers were ranked with easier schedules than the LA Kings, with the Oilers having the easiest schedule of them all, at least according to tankathon.com. I'm also guessing that having four teams in the Pacific Division, Anaheim, Seattle, San Jose, Vancouver, who all did not make the playoffs last year, probably is helping the strength of schedule for the top teams in the division, Edmonton, Vegas, and LA. And I'm guessing not a lot of teams are probably going to pick Anaheim, Seattle, San Jose, or Vancouver to make the playoffs again this season. So I'm sure that is what helps the strength of schedule for the LA Kings. So if you're on social media and if you care about such things as this, the Kings did put out a video announcing the schedule. Now, I can only assume they've been inspired by the NFL. This has kind of become a thing in the NFL where a lot of teams will put out some sort of clever schedule release video or something. I know my wife, I've mentioned a billion times, is a huge Chargers fan, and they're kind of renowned for the video that they put out announcing their schedule. Now, in the NFL, obviously, it's not 82 games. It's not even close. So it's a little bit different, but I'm guessing maybe the Kings are kind of getting in on that. And I don't know if this is becoming a thing in the NHL or not, but it's definitely a thing in the NFL. So maybe it's kind of bleeding over. But anyway, to the point. The Kings put out a video announcing the schedule, and there were some people they had helping them to announce this. They kind of put on a little skit. It was pretty funny. It was well done. There was even a cameo by Drew Doughty, who was delivering some food to this meeting they were having to try and figure out the Kings schedule. I have no clue who these guys were. I tried to look into it, and I guess they're podcasters. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be a hater at all. But I have no idea who these guys were. I'm sure I would have enjoyed it a lot more if I knew who they were. And maybe I'm coming off like the old guy here, but I mean, I know you got Spit and Chicklets, you got 32 Thoughts, as far as like the big podcasts out there. I don't know who these guys were at all. So, sorry, I don't know. Am I the only one? Like I said, I might be coming off like the old guy here, but I had no idea who these guys were. I thought maybe they were part of like a TV show or something, but apparently not. I guess they're part of a podcast. Anyway, it was well done. It was well done. It was amusing. I didn't hate it, but I just didn't know who those guys were. I'm just being honest. Maybe making myself look like an idiot. Up next, maybe some big news on Anze Kopitar. We will discuss that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it is easy to lose track. That is where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. And managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com and get 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. I usually don't talk too much about other people out there that are in the business that I'm in, so to speak. And it's not because I'm unwilling to give them any credit. Matter of fact, if I ever talk about something that's from Zach Dooley, the insider, or somebody like that, I always try and mention that, hey, this was from Zach Dooley, the insider. So mayorsmanor.com is a website you might be familiar with. If you're an LA Kings fan, they've covered the team for many years as kind of an independent source. The guy that runs that site, I think he created it, is John Hoven. And I know he's got some other people that kind of work on his staff. And I've heard they did a behind the scenes kind of war room Kings NHL draft thing that was apparently amazing. I haven't checked it out yet, but I intend to. So anyway, I don't know John. I see him at all the Kings games. Seems like a nice guy. I've never had too much of interaction with him, but I do think that Mayor's Manor puts out some good information. I use some of their information to help you guys stay informed on this show, help myself stay informed as well. And when I do, I definitely want to give them credit, and I will do so actually coming up in a moment. But so anyway, their X account put out a post on Thursday. And if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to show it to you. If you're listening on the podcast, I will read what it said. But here was the post. Quote, "Not expecting Kopitar to sign an extension of any sort. Enjoy his final season in the NHL." End quote. Okay, so I used to work for over 20 years at the Fox Sports Radio Network, and I was the news guy. I would do like the sports updates 4 times an hour, update people what's going on in the world of sports. And, you know, I never uncovered the news myself. I was just repeating stuff that other people reported, you know, and with the internet, awesome. I mean, I could find all this information. People were putting it out there. And then but you had to know like who to trust, who to listen to, even be careful that, you know, sometimes they would have fake accounts out there. You got to be really careful with making sure. So my job was to kind of figure out what is newsworthy, what's important, who to trust, that kind of thing. So I have some pretty good experience when it comes to trying to disseminate what is news and what's important, things like that. I got to be honest with you. I'm not sure how to feel about this because on the face surface, it sounds like they're reporting this is the last season for Anze Kopitar. Or is it just somebody giving their opinion? Now, usually when you report something, if you are reporting something that's kind of important news, like, hey, this is the last year for Anze Kopitar, you would say something like, according to a team source, this is going to be the last year for Anze Kopitar, something like that. But that really wasn't included. I'll read it again. Not expecting Kopitar to sign an extension of any sort. Enjoy his final season in the NHL. So, I mean, it kind of sounds like they're reporting this is it for Kopi, but it also, I don't know. It just, there's something missing here for me that, you know, if this was, I'm not trying to take a shot at the Mayor's Manor people at all. I'm really not. But if this was Elliot Friedman reporting this, I'm leading off the show with this because I know that guy knows his stuff and doesn't report stuff that isn't almost always the case. So I don't know. And I'm not saying that the people at Mayor's Manor don't know what they're talking about. I'm just saying I don't know how to feel about this because it seems like they're breaking or kind of breaking a story, or are they just kind of giving an opinion on something? Like there's just not quite enough there for me to feel like this is kind of some big breaking news. And yet it also, there's something telling me maybe it is. So I'm conflicted on this. And maybe you're probably saying, well, if you don't know if this is, you know, good enough to bring up, why are you bringing it up? Because I'm right there on the line with it. Like I said, on face value, that post seems like they're reporting this is Kopitar's final season, but I don't know. There just isn't. I need something else there for me to kind of buy in that this is something more than just someone giving me their opinion. Because I've been saying the same thing. Now I haven't said this is definitely Kopitar's final year. I've said here's what I have said. If you guys know this, if you're an everydayer, I've said I think we should all, as Kings fans, prepare ourselves that this could be Kopitar's final year. Now, that's certainly not reporting that it's going to be. It's kind of reading the room. He's going to turn 38 next month. This is going to be his 20th year. It's the final year of his contract. He's accomplished just about everything he can in his career that he's going to. 2-time Stanley Cup winner. He's going to be a surefire Hall of Famer, greatest King of all time, in my opinion. So, it's going to be soon. Could be this year, maybe not. I don't know. But I don't know. That was out there. And it felt like maybe it was something that needed to be shared, but I just kind of wish there was a little more to it than just that. So I thought I'm going to just say it and you guys can decide what you think about that. And I also won't lie. It's the off season. We're all looking for some content. It raised my eyebrow when I saw it. And I just was kind of on the fence as to whether this is kind of breaking news or not quite that. I don't know. So like I said, just passing it along and you guys can decide for yourself. I have said what I expect, to use the expect word like they did, that if this is Anze Kopitar's last year, I think he does a Dustin Brown. I think he announces it very late in the year to make this as little of a distraction or whatever you want to call it as possible, because that just seems in keeping with who Anze Kopitar is. He's a low-key guy. He's not out there in the spotlight. I think if he does decide to call it quits this year, I think that's how he'll go about doing it. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe they do announce something soon that this is going to be the final season. But we shall see. Thought I'd share that, and that was that. Also, real quick, the fourth period is reporting that Adrian Kempe is looking for a contract that'll pay him $10 million per season. Now, I've been saying this for a while. Again, no sources here, but I'm just putting 2 and 2 together, and I think it equals 10. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But again, to repeat what I've been saying, if the number is 10 million per season for Adrian Kempe, I got no issue with that. And I'm sure the Kings would argue going from 5.5 million to 10 is a sizable jump, and it is. But also, Adrian Kempe was underpaid at 5.5 million for the last 4 years. So you had him for a bargain price for 4 years. Now it's time to pay up. So if you look at what the other top wingers around the NHL are getting paid, if Kempe were to sign for 10, that would make him the 6th highest paid winger in the NHL. You got Mitch Marner at 12, Mikko Rantanen at 12 million a year, Artemi Panarin 11.64, David Pastrnak 11.25, and Jonathan Huberdeau at 10.5. Of course, that's also going to change when Kirill Kaprizov signs his next deal. He will definitely make over $10 million a year. You've got Jason Robertson, you've got Kyle Connor. I would think they would be in the 10 million range. Alexander Ovechkin, if he wants to play another year, maybe he gets 10 million. I don't know, but I have no problem at all if the number is 10 million a year for Adrian Kempe. Look, if the Kings can make it less than that, good for them. But for me, I don't think 10 million is an overpayment for what Adrian Kempe does for the Kings. If that is the number, fine. Pay him, give that man his money, and let's get this over with before the season starts. Pretty please. All right, that is going to do it for today's show. We'll want to let you know if you're an everydayer and you listen to watch Locked On LA Kings every day, that coming up on our next show, it is our Kings fan feedback show. Whatever's on your mind involving the LA Kings, it is your chance to share it with the rest of us. If you want to get an email in for the feedback show, the email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. You can always leave your comments if you're watching on YouTube in the comment section as well. We also would love for you to stay interactive on the show and follow us on X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We are at Locked On LA Kings. And if you're interested in some more Kings content and supporting me as well, send me an email, lakingsextra@gmail.com, and we will get you that information. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time. And as always, go Kings, go.